Welcome to the Racing Nuggets podcast. I'm PJ Noodleman, joined by my co-host from the Midwest Racing Connection, Dan Flan. Hey, Dan.
Good to be here, testing out my new headset. Hopefully this works.
You look all important and stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
Our guest, he hails from the eastern side of the state of Wisconsin, and he has a very rich history in short track racing and beyond, for that matter. Please welcome Jerry Miller. Hi, Jerry. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
We are thrilled to have you here. You have been very involved in racing for decades, actually. But I want to go back a little bit before that. How did you actually get involved in racing, and when was that?
Well, this way back in 1952, my dad had a Kaiser we ran at Milwaukee State Fair Park. And Milwaukee was a dirt track there. That was our first racing experience. And when I got out of service, I ran a sportsman car up at Plymouth and Cedarburg and stuff like that. And then we moved up to own a modified at one time, and we've been involved all our lives with that. And then my brother and I started Miller Brothers Racing in '75. And we had Johnny Reiser and Mike Milius driving for us. That was a dirt car. We ran Cedarburg, Hales Corners, and stuff like that. And after that, we moved to USAC. And that was with Dean Roper. And we won the USAC championship in 81, 82, and 83 with Roper. We won 11 races on the dirt, mile dirt, Springfield, DuQuoin, Terre Haute. And we won a race at Milwaukee and fair to fair race, the 250 miler in 1984.
Wow.
And Bobby Allison finished right behind us in that race that time. So after that, we started going to NASCAR. And then we progressed from there. Roper drove for us in NASCAR. We first started there. First year we went down there, we ran the ARCA race, and there was 100 cars trying to get into the 500. They had so many cars, 50 cars in each qualifying race.
Holy smokes.
And you had to finish in the top 15 to get in the show. And we finished 14th in the qualifying race. And we finished like 15th in the 500 that year.
Dang.
That's where we've been going since then.
So you've been a gearhead pretty much your whole life.
Well, you could say that. Yeah, we're in the car business besides that. So it's just kind of a natural thing to do. We were involved in drag racing years ago too. I did that for a while. So.
When you're running the USAC stuff, the Milwaukee Mile, was Bobby still running the AMC stuff back then when you were able to get him? Yep. All right, cool.
Yeah. He had the Nash.
the Rambler. And then John Reiser, that was Robbie's dad. Is that
Robbie's
correct?
dad? Yep, he drove for us, and Robbie drove for us later on too. And Robbie and Bradley, my son, were the same age. They grew up together. Reiser was a great family. And,
when you moved from USAC to NASCAR, was that something the Miller brothers wanted to do as a race team, or is that something you worked with Dean on doing to move from USAC to NASCAR?
Dean wanted to do it too, but after Dean, then we had Jim Sauter drive for us. That started in '84. Dean had some issues health-wise and this and that, and we put Sauter in the car. And that lasted for about 10 years with Sauter. That was a good relationship, yeah.
I was looking at the history of the Miller brothers in NASCAR, and showed Dean Roper and Rodney Combs, who was a pretty standout dirt racer and USAC guy, and most of the races were run by Jim, but I was surprised to see Michael Waltrip ran your car. I'm guessing he didn't qualify and bought your car for the 500 that year?
They didn't buy our car, we just gave him a ride. I went to Chuck Ryder when they didn't make the race, and I said, you need country time on the car. And I said, for 10 grand, I'll put country time on the car. He said, what if we put Michael in it? I said, 50 grand, we'll put Michael in it. He said, done deal, just like that. So we repainted the car overnight in the NASCAR garage. First time that was ever done. One of the officials, Elmo Langley, had to stay overnight in the garage with us, keep everybody honest, you know. And we painted the car overnight, had the decals on it. The next morning, we were on the track at 10 o'clock for practice. So
Did they let you put some small Evinrude stickers on there still?
Yep, we had everyone on too, and we split crews. Half was the country time guys and half was our crew. So it was really a neat deal. Chuck Ryder was a great guy to work with. He really turned out to be a good friend of ours there.
How did those crews work together? How did that work
But
out?
everybody got along fine, you know. They each had their job and stuff like that. And we finished 17th, I believe, in the 500 that year. We would have been better, but we had to stop for tires with about 20 laps to go. So we were getting a flat. So
Wow.
Michael was good to work with too. He enjoyed it too. I still talk to him about it when I see him. We still talk about it, you know.
Do you? I was just going to ask you, how many of these guys have you still remained in touch with?
Oh, like Tony Stewart, still remain in touch with him, and just other guys, the guys that put on our body that time. Norton Agree, he was our crew chief for us, and Terry Allen was our crew chief too for a while. He used to be with I'm trying to think, the Budweiser car, that Budweiser King car. And let's see, who else are we in touch with? Yeah, Bobby Allison actually stays by our house when he comes up here. We pick him up
Nice.
at the airport. That's quite an honor. You know, he's got more stories, and he sat at the race shop one night, sat there for an hour telling the guys his whole life story and stuff like that. And amazing guy, you know. Yeah,
That was one of my favorites as a kid growing up was,
yeah,
in my era, it was like Petty or Pearson, but I always enjoyed Bobby Allison because he was the one that would show up at Elko or Lacrosse
yeah.
and would still go barnstorming at the short tracks, which is
Sure.
getting a little more popular with some of the guys these days. But I think Bobby was the one that stuck true to that for
Yeah.
almost his entire NASCAR
And
career.
we run into him all the time. We're at Daytona and different places, and we're always running into him. And about his 82 Le Mans that he sat on the pole at Daytona with, the black and silver car that time.
Okay.
Won the pole, he won the qualifying race, as winning the 500, and he ran out of gas with 20 laps to go. Pitted and still finished second. And a lot of
Wow.
things that people don't know about that. Him and Darrell Waltrip, not Darrell Waltrip, I'm trying to think of his crew chief that time. They weren't getting along. Waddell Wilson. They weren't getting along. He short filled him on his last gas stop. He didn't want him to win the race. And that's what happened there. So Bobby tells that story all the time yet. That's why he didn't win the 500 that year, but he eventually won it anyway. So
Racers never forget, huh?
no, they don't. No. They get even.
That's the truth. That is the truth.
Yeah.
Jerry, surely you've got some more really great stories. Who's been the most wonderful person that you have ever had the pleasure of working with, and why?
Who was the most wonderful person?
Yeah.
Well, Jim Sauter was one great guy, I'll tell you that. He was a very religious guy, and his wife was dying of cancer when he was driving for us. She eventually died, and I think it was 95 or 94 she died. And he had a big family, 11 kids. And he remarried again a couple of years later and had another kid, and his kids are still involved in racing. You know, Johnny was, and now Johnny's son is, and it's a great family, you know.
Yeah. Big family. They're Catholic. That's
Catholic,
Catholics.
yeah. That's why he moved to Nacita originally, because of the statue of the Blessed Virgin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People don't know that. And the reason his car was number 5 was Christ had 5 wounds on him. Blue was Blessed Virgin's gown. That's why his cars were blue. I mean, he really took this serious, Jim.
I love that
He
about
was a
him.
great guy, yeah.
Yeah. And Johnny, anytime he ever won, he would always make sure to get out and he would thank the
Thank
blessed
the Lord.
yeah,
Yep, right.
and the Blessed
Yep.
Mary,
Yeah.
Virgin Mary, which was funny because Johnny at the same time would also be heard on his scanner cursing a blue streak.
Oh yeah. My wife gave him a bar of soap all the time before the race. We always gave him hell about that, but Johnny's a good kid.
Yeah, he is, and his son Penn is definitely going to be a future wheeler for sure. He already is a
Yeah.
wheeler.
He got crashed at Slinger Sunday night. Same night our son got crashed there, and they're both leading the race or going for the lead when he got crashed, you know.
What's that like for you to watch your son race? Do you get stressed out watching him, or are
Well,
you
not
pretty
stressed
cool?
out anymore, but I was saying next to Carl Wagner years ago at Charlotte, and he said to me, "This is quite a few years ago. Brad was like 20. He says, "How come you don't have your son out there?" And he said he's better than half of them out there already. And I said, no, there's too many people getting hurt. There's about 3 or 4 drivers getting killed that year. Young guys, Davey Allison and Kenny Irwin, and just a whole bunch of guys that were getting killed. And I said, I just don't want to put him in that position, you know. So, and he enjoyed what he did short track racing, still does, you know. He's getting to be, what is probably 54 right now, yeah.
And he's doing both dirt and
Asphalt. He's the
asphalt.
only
So
guy
yeah,
that does that in the state right now, and he's got 8 championships. He just won one at Plymouth again now in the dirt, so
nice.
he's doing good. He's a good kid.
So when did you decide to get out from behind the wheel and why?
Oh, that's when I got married that time. That's when I quit driving. And we had a family, and I met my wife. I sold her a new GTO in '67. That's how we met to begin with.
And you knew because she had good taste in vehicles, she might be the one.
Yeah, and she wasn't bad looking either. She was a lot like you.
You're so sweet.
So
You are so
anyway, our
sweet.
first date, we went I was drag racing. She's sitting in the stands. But then we started, and that was a '75. We started Miller Brothers Racing, and she goes to every race, goes barely all the races. She's a big photographer. She got Photographer of the Year award from NASCAR. And we
Wow.
weren't even at the banquet when they announced her name. Because she had all the pictures of Ricky Rudd when he did his flip and Randy LaJoy. I've been going to Daytona for 62 years now. Never missed.
Nice.
So, and she's been going along all those years too. So
Well, Jerry, I got to tell you, it sounds to me sort of like you have enough stories to write a book, and Elaine could fill it with photographs to go along with your stories.
yeah, and another one, we switched to Ford in '93, and we did it. Robert Yates. He's another great guy in racing. I'll tell you what, you don't come any better than him. We sat down to do an engine deal with him, and he says, "How's ever a pretty good sponsor?" I said, $100 grand. He's that per race. I said, "No, that's for the year." And he said, "I'll do the motor program for you for 10 grand a race," and that's really reasonable because he has the best motors. You know, they're 60,000 if you got to buy a motor. So after a race, I said, "You want us to pull the engine and leave here?" He says, "No, we trust you. We know about you guys. Take it along, bring it down next time." You know, that's the way he was with us. And his wife called me up and said, "I want to buy Robert a boat for his birthday." And we were off on the July 4th weekend. And they live on Lake Norman down there. And she said, "What kind of boat can I?" said, "I got a 22-foot deck boat with a 150 horse motor on it." She said, "But how are we going to get it?" I said, "I'll have it down there in 2 days." And that's what we did. And she said, "Well, how much is it?" I said, "I'll trade with more, what's it called, on the engine deal that we had for 10,000 race. I'll just, with Robert, I'll just work that out." And we had the same
Nice.
thing with Ernie Irvin. When Ernie got hurt at Michigan, we were there. And I sold Ernie a trailer. And I brought it down. I had it down by Norm McGree's shop. And he said, "How much is the trailer?" I said, "It's 10 grand, but I'll work it out with Robert." He yelled over, "Hey, Robert, you and I are partners on a trailer." And all we laughed. He went out and got hurt then. He
Wow.
called me up 6 months later because he was in the hospital quite a while. He says, "Where's that trailer?" And I said, "It's over by Norm McGree's shop." And he said, he called me back later on. He said, "I backed up to that trailer. That's the first one I hooked on, and everything worked. All the lights worked on." He was happy. So
That's
I
cool.
just talked to him again this year at Daytona. So,
Well, you definitely are staying in touch with everybody then,
oh
aren't
yeah,
you?
a lot of guys
Yeah.
down there. Yeah. Joey Knuckles, you probably never heard of him. He was a big crew chief back in those days for Daryl Waltrip and a lot of different guys. Ran into him. Bobby Allison, Davey too, yeah. Davey was a friend of ours. And Richard Petty is still a good friend of ours. We went to the Richard Petty driver's school. I had like 12 of us went there. And in the morning we had to go to a classroom, and the instructor says, "Somebody in your group has got a lot of clout because they told the king they would be here today, and the king will be here, and he never comes." This was at Charlotte. Richard comes in, runs over, gives my wife a big hug, and spent the whole day with us. Did a training film, did a commercial, signed autographs and pictures with everybody there. Spent the whole day there. Just great. Richard Petty is one of the greatest guys you ever met. You know, we still see him
That's
at the races
incredible.
all the time. You know, And Kyle too. Kyle was a good friend of ours too. Richard, I had our 18, well, she was a 16-year-old at the time, daughter along, and she was going for a driver's license. Next time we got to the track, Richard said, "You get them?" And she says, "Yep." He says, "Good girl." You know, he remembered stuff like that. It's things like that that kept you going. We were in a league where we didn't belong in NASCAR, but they accepted us and we stuck with it. And we got enough sponsor money doing different things. We did some tests for Pontiac. They paid us 50 grand to do a brake test up at Gacona. Two guys from France were there that designed the nose cone on the space shuttle, the tiles, and they had some ceramic brakes that we tested. And Sauter was driving and we crashed a car in the last lap of the day. The brake fluid boiled. And the guy from Pontiac, Dave Brown, he loved us guys. He put his arm around me. He says, "Don't worry, we'll buy you another car." So that's the way it was, you know.
Dang.
Yeah,
That's
That was
actually a total different era than what it
it
is. I mean,
was.
that
It
kind of
is. Yeah.
stuff would never
Now I
happen
wouldn't want
now.
to be in it anymore. It's not that way anymore. When we wrecked our car, Rodney was driving at Daytona, and we crashed and in practice the night before the race, qualifying race. And the guys stayed overnight. Elmo Langley in there to fix the car. Ray Everham came over and helped fix the car. We got parts from Petty and parts from Jimmy Means and those guys, and they all came to help us put the car together. Overnight, we had on the track the next morning. Just things like that, you know. It just was a different era, you know.
that was one of the questions I was going to ask. So I take it when you were running NASCAR, you were still based. Your team was based out of Wisconsin, so you had to
Yeah, ran
tow all
away.
the way
We had
down
to
to
go
Florida.
down, yep, all the time, yeah. Yeah.
Can't really do that these days.
No, we ran Talladega too, and Atlanta, Michigan. We ran them all, you know, the speedways because that's what paid the money. And let me think what else I had going here.
I was going to ask you, Jerry, are you, do you consider yourself to be a Ford man or a Pontiac man, or what are you?
Well, when they quit making Pontiac, they had me on suicide watch. Tell you something.
No wonder Elaine caught your eye when she wanted that
Yeah.
GTO. Yeah.
But when we switched to Ford, the guy from Pontiac says, "You're the last guy in the whole wide world that would switch." But Ford had an advantage that year. And the guy that put on our bodies did the bodies for Yates. And then we got the engine deal with Yates. That meant a lot too. And so we thought we'd give it a shot, you know. But actually, we ran better with the Pontiacs than we did with the Ford. Oh, and another thing with the Indy, 1984 Indy, we practiced for Indy. We had
94.
Huh?
94.
94, yeah. We had anyway. We had $100,000 sponsor for that. We teamed up with Dick Simon, who owned IndyCar teams, on that, and we practiced 3 times down there. We were fast. We ran real good, and comes to the qualifying race day, we had to change something on the rear window on the Fords. That hurt us a little bit, but Sauter went out and qualified. We ended up 30th. But the reason for that was we put an additive in the fuel before the race, which isn't legal, but it's one that couldn't detect. Gary Nelson came over after we qualified and said, "Can I look at your car?" I said, "Yeah, what are you looking for?" He said, "Nitrous. You had the fastest straightaway speed of any car down there. I want to know why." And happened, we were so fast on the back straightaway, Sauter went into turn 3 and the car pushed up on him. And that cost us a little bit, but we were still in the race. So AJ Foyt is the last car to qualify. On the scoreboard, they showed everybody's time and speed for every driver down there. AJ Foyt went out, they put nothing on the scoreboard, you know, it said AJ's in and Sauter's out. So, you know, it was a NASCAR deal right there.
Yeah, that smells funny.
Because they needed AJ Foyt in that race. They didn't need Jim Sauter in it, you know. And just that we were in that 30 spot. Bad.
What a bummer.
Yeah, it was. It really, and it paid $200,000 to start the race.
Oh, jeez.
That really hurt. That really
Did
hurt.
you raise a stink, Jerry?
Did we what?
Did you raise a stink over that? Did you?
No, you don't do that with NASCAR. You know?
Yeah.
No, what are you gonna do? You know, they set the rule and that's it, you know. They also have the last word. And look the way it is nowadays too. All this
I was gonna say, some things never change.
No, it doesn't, you know. Yep, they all say it's the last page. And I remember we bought Bobby Allison's Le Mans, get to the first race with it. He says, "Oh, the bars are wrong on the fuel cell in the back. You got to switch them. You can't race it the way it is. The protection bars underneath it." I said, "Bobby Allison ran it just this last year." Oh, he says, "Look in the last page of the rule book." I said, "It's a blank page up. That's where we write the rules." You know, he said.
For
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
And then we got caught one year. We had Tiki Tan. Well, that was interesting. Year '84. Tiki Tan and the race in Daytona, July 4th race. Okay, and we had them for a sponsor. So I had to get the guy in with the decals in the morning. So I gave him one of the garage passes for one of our guys, and he comes in, but he's dressed up like a beach bum, you know, with his white shirt and his hair fluffed up and everything else, bringing the decals. He was a Tiki Tan owner. And all of a sudden comes over the intercom where Jerry Miller from Miller Brothers Racing, please come to the NASCAR trailer. Go in there and what was his name that time?
I don't remember.
Yeah, he throws on the pass. He says, "I suppose you can explain how this pass got in this guy's hands." I told him like it was. I said, "I need the decals in here," and he was bringing them in for blah, blah, blah. He says, "You know, I can charge you $5,000 for giving that pass to somebody else." But he says, "What I'm going to do, I'm going to charge you $100. He says, "I suppose this means we won't get any cheese at Christmas this year because we used to set all the NASCAR officials cheese." Just things like that, you know, you remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was probably the best NASCAR official that you were able to work with?
Oh boy. What's his name there that is still in the truck series?
Oh, but
Yeah, he's thinking about, I'll tell you one thing about the '84 race. After the race, we got to have the picnic with the president. President Reagan was at the race. So they bust us all into the infield, car owners, drivers, and crew chiefs and their wives. And we had a picnic. It was Richard Petty won the race with an illegal motor. He had a 380 cubic inch motor.
it's 200 win.
Yeah, it's 200 to win too. And Reagan was there, Petty, and NASCAR officials, and Tammy Wynette was there singing. We had Kentucky Fried Chicken and Pepsi. And neat thing about it, it was my wife's birthday, July 4th. So I said it was one heck of a birthday party I gave her. Had the president there, Richard.
No kidding. Boy, that doesn't get much more American there too
Oh,
for
and
everything.
just fun things like that you remember. You know, it just we're very fortunate.
Yeah. Who was the most unusual person that you just met on a fluke? Maybe somebody that you didn't necessarily work with, but a weird story that you met somebody.
Oh boy. Well, it wasn't a weird story, but I'll tell you how we ended up with a quickie and Hooters. Mark Stoll didn't make the race. He had Hooters on his car. So I went over to Mark and I said, who was this?
Buster Otten.
Oh, Buster Otten. He was a NASCAR official, was a good friend of ours. He's in the truck series yet. But, you know, and Elaine got to ride in a pace car too at the start of the race for
In the
Bush
80s.
in the '80s for the Bush race. And Harold Kinder, he was a flagman too. He's a good friend of ours.
Oh, my mom spilled her Coke on Harold Kinder when we were kids.
No kidding, huh?
At Michigan, yeah, we were getting our picture
those
taken,
were
and my
all
mom
good guys
spilled.
back then, you know.
Yeah, they really were.
Anyway, I go over to Mark Stoll. I said, "You need Hooters on the car." And he said, "Well, I don't know. The guy from Hooters is here. I'll take you over by him." So I took him over. I said, $5 and put Hooters on the car. He says, "Okay." Who else doesn't have a sponsor? I said, "Alan Kowicki is sitting on the pole." He says, "Can you take me over by him?" So I said, "Sure." Went over by Alan, and Alan said, $10,000, you can have the whole car. So I said, "Well, let's go make a phone call." We didn't have cell phones at that time. So we went in a little phone room there. This is Atlanta. And it's a little 12 by 12 room with a dozen payphones in it. So he calls up, the PR guy from Hooters calls up, and he said, "I'll call you back in 15 minutes. Bob Brooks called back. President of Hooters says, do them both." So he did them both. So that night at Atlanta Hooters, we had an announcement that we're sponsoring Souter and Quickie, you know, and everybody from Hooters was there. We had our crew there, and Alan had his crew. Davey Allison was there. Some of Petty's guys were there. We had a whole bunch of racers there. And they announced that. Another neat thing, that was my birthday that night. and we're at Hooters, so they had a birthday cake for me, all the Hooters girls, they got a picture taken with them. It was a neat deal, and the next day Elaine took all the Hooters girls around in the pits and would call the drivers, we took them by her, and everybody got to have their picture taken with the Hooters girls. It was a big deal for Hooters, and it turned out good for Alan too, you know. Alan was a neat guy.
How did you end up getting hooked up with him? Was that the first time, or did you
No,
already have?
Alan, he drove our car at Milwaukee when we won that race with Bobby Allison second. Alan was seventh in our other car, and he would have been better than that, but we had a leaky valve cover gasket.
Hmm.
So, but I knew Alan from the short track days, and Alan and I always had a contest after before the race, going around all the teams getting tires from them. Because, you know, a lot of the big teams, they ran 2-3 laps on the tires and they'd sell them their scuffs. They wouldn't start a race with them. So we buy those for $200 a set instead of paying $800 to $1,000 for a set. So it was a contest between us all the time. And then remember the last thing Alan said to me after Daytona was, had our 18-year-old daughter along, little blonde. He says, "How old's your daughter again?" That was Alan. He was always looking. Yeah.
Funny. He was smart, that's for sure.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
He was a real maverick and an enterprising person. I mean, I think he really blazed a trail that a lot of folks would love to be able to do nowadays. But
Yeah,
again, it's different world
nowadays. No,
yeah.
no. But he came up by us a couple times, and we went out to eat with his girlfriend at that time too, and stuff like that. And he called me up on New Year's Eve. He says, "What radiator are you using at Daytona?" No, it's Christmas Eve. It's Christmas Eve. He says, "How many car owners you think are talking to each other on Christmas Eve about what radiator to run at Daytona?" You know, but we'd go back and forth like that. You know, he was a good guy. Yeah.
You've really made a lot of great connections throughout the years. I'm going to reiterate, I think you should write a book, Jerry.
And somebody else told me that already, but I don't want to get involved with that. This is neat doing this with you, though. So, yeah.
Well, we appreciate you doing this too. Looks like you're flipping through some notes. Do you have any other good stories you want to share?
I was going to tell you.
I know what I was going to tell her.
Huh?
Years ago, the women could not go into the garage area.
That's right. Yeah, biggie. This is a biggie.
And this was
Oh,
at Daytona. And I went up by Bill Gazaway. His office was across the track. And I went in there and I said, you know, I'm part owner of this car. I says, "Is there any reason that I can't have a garage pass?" Nope. Gave me one.
She was the first woman to get a garage pass.
Well, I think so, because there was none, you know, all the wives down there, they're all dressed to, you know, the high heels and the da-da-da, you know. Then we came from this little town and I asked for a garage pass and I got it.
She had her
Good for you, Elaine.
hot pants on, and she was a big hit in the garage area.
Dear Cope says, "How come she's so tired all the time?" So what did one of the crew members say? Because she has to take care of all the guys.
Yeah. But she also ran, everyone sponsored a fishing contest back in those days.
In Lake Lloyd.
And Lake Lloyd back on the Speedway. And she helped run that. And Neil Bonnet was a good friend of ours. We put a 300 horsepower Everwood motor on his bass boat. And the boat would go 104 miles an hour. And he'd want to take her for a ride and she wouldn't even go with him back there. But Neil, that morning he died. I talked to him, we were in line, and he said, "What can we do to make my boat faster?" I said, "We could try a different prop on it." And he went out and he was in practice on the track same time we were. I'm standing up on top of our truck watching practice. I seen him hit the wall, and he was driving for Jimmy Finch, another good friend of ours that owned his car. And they took a while to get Neil out of the car, and he came by. Jimmy Finch was sitting in front of the ambulance crying. I said right away, "Neil didn't make it." Yeah, it was sad.
I bet.
Dean Roper's son was killed too.
Yeah, Dean that drove for us, his son Tony was killed in a truck race in Texas. And Dean came out of retirement. He'd been retired for like 7, 8 years and drove our dirt car at Springfield and died in our car during the race of a blood clot to his heart. He didn't tell anybody he had a stent put in that week, and he didn't want anybody to know that he wanted to do that race. So that was sad.
Yeah,
Sad.
I was
Not up
reading
to
about
now.
about Dean passing away in that race, and
Yeah.
it was very similar to what I experienced at the Minnesota State Fair around that time when Bob Gisola passed away at the Minnesota State Fair race, and the newspapers at the time tried to portray it as this tragic wreck, but he had a heart attack and
He
just
had a heart.
bounced off the wall, and they had to,
Yeah. Sauter used to run up at that fair a lot too back in those days. He was originally from Minnesota. Jim
yeah,
was.
he won. I think he won one of the 500 lappers too back in the
Yeah.
day when I think he had moved to Wisconsin by then. But yeah, he was driving the Weir's car back then when he
Oh
won
yeah,
the.
Larry Weirs, he's another great guy
Yeah,
in racing, a good friend of ours. Yeah, the
yeah.
whole Weirs family, you know.
Well,
We had
Jerry,
so many good people.
you should put a good word into Larry Weirs. We tried to get him to do this show, and he was like, "No, no, no."
I'll talk to Larry about that because Larry's a good guy. It's we get
Yeah,
along real
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
he would have a lot of great stories to
he
tell
used
for
to get
sure.
my. It's hard to get a garage pass now or pit pass for these races, so I also went on under Larry's name because he had them underneath the sponsorship with his truck, Freightliners or trailers and stuff. So I got with that. Now I get them with 5-star. Those are good guys too. They did all the bodies for NASCAR now and stuff.
Yep.
And Carl and his son Corey, they're real good friends of ours. And whenever I need a garage pass, you just call them up and I got one, you know, so you can't beat that relationship either. Yeah.
You sure can't. You have made so many connections and so many friends, you and Elaine both, throughout the years of racing that it's just really cool because there's no way somebody could do that in this day and age because there's so many politics and things now.
We even got your brother-in-law staying at our house.
Well, I'm really sorry about that.
Yeah, so am I.
He's a handful,
He's
that
got two
one.
nice kids, yeah.
Yeah. His kids are kind of his saving grace.
Yeah, but he's one hell of a crew chief, I'll say that. Oh, your husband is here.
Oh, my husband? Yeah.
Yeah,
He's all right.
yeah. I'm not sure about Majeski. I like Majeski. I root for him, but he doesn't have the personality that
He doesn't necessarily go out drinking in public. And you know what though? I think part of that is part of what we just talked about with the politics and how things are. It's a different world now with social media.
Yeah.
If you go out and tie one on and you do something stupid, there's going to be 20 cell phones that recorded it.
Oh yeah,
And
pictures of you and everything else.
yeah. I mean, can you imagine if all that was around even 20 or 30 years ago?
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't have survived. I wouldn't be here.
No,
Yeah.
none of us would. None of us would.
I know,
One
right?
that really liked to drink back no, it was Roper. We'd leave here in Milwaukee, we'd have to go to Springfield or somewhere to race. I'd say, well, how far is that? A 12-pack, he'd say.
Yeah. My dad, it was before I was born, one of my dad's uncles drove a tow truck for a Chevy dealership up here, and Tiny Lund was up racing the Minnesota State Fair.
Yeah.
And they worked on the car at the dealership, and they'd use the tow truck to tow it back. And my dad said he remembers about his uncle yelling at Tiny on the way back to the dealership after the race that he couldn't throw the beer cans out the window. He had to keep them inside the cab of the truck.
Yeah, right. He was quite a guy, Tiny Lund, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Any other stories, Jerry, that you want to share? I don't want to stop you if you've got more.
Yeah. Yeah, think of what else I would have had here. That was Roper, Wiki, yeah.
We have a great grandson that's going to be interested in racing.
You know what, Elaine? I've seen pictures of him on Brad's Facebook page. What a cutie pie.
Yeah, he's 27 months old. I just did a picture of him tearing the plastic off the dirt tires. I mean, everything he does around the race car, he keeps doing it. He doesn't just run around and play with little things, you know. He's really interested in the cars. He pushes the tires all around the pits, and he's pretty cool.
I saw some videos of him doing that. It is pretty cool. He's going to be a lucky little guy to get to grow up around it and to be able to hear about all the stories from great grandpa and grandma. Yeah,
Bradley says that he's going to be the 2040 Rookie of the Year. 2040.
Yeah.
I hope I'm around by then, but you never know.
Now suddenly I'm feeling really old.
And not as old as us. Oof, yay.
I'm 81 now. I can't believe I got that old.
You look great. Both of you look great.
I always did look good though.
I know where Bradley gets his sense of humor from.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Well, it's like earlier when,
He's a
when
good
Jerry,
kid. We're real proud of our family. Everybody in our family, everybody gets along good. They all love racing, and they all go to the races. Yet, you know.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dan's finishing up.
Okay.
Finish, Dan.
oh, I was going to say earlier when Jerry said he good looking like you, and I thought he was talking about me, but then I realized he's talking about Jacqueline. So
Oh, you look good too. How old are you?
He's pretty young.
56.
Yeah.
How much?
56.
Oh, God,
Oh,
you're just a
you're
baby.
Bradley's age, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
nice.
going to be 53 next month.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember those days. That's when we
Yeah.
started having grandkids about that age.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
I was blessed to get grandkids through marriage.
oh, good.
Kids and grandkids.
Yeah. That's what Michelle did too.
Saves a lot of effort
All
on my
never had
part.
any kids either. So,
Yeah. So, yeah. So it's good. They're having fun.
No grandkids here. My kid's getting married in a month. My
Oh.
wife wants them to have kids right away, but I told them they're really messing up the whole system because they're getting married before they have kids. They're really
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's usually the other way around nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
tell you, a
Yeah.
funny thing happened with Soder when we were at Charlotte. We got in a crash on the front stretch, and he gets out of the car, and Chris Economaki said there's a lot of people worried about Jim Soder right now, father, 11 children, and all that. He gets out of the car, takes his helmet off. He wore a toupee, and his toupee was turned sideways when he got out of the car on national television.
It wasn't funny, but
It was funny.
Yeah,
he got a charge out of it too. But,
yeah.
yeah.
That's wild. That's wild. Well, what's your favorite racetrack to go to, Jerry?
Right now in NASCAR, Daytona's
Yeah.
still the favorite.
Yeah.
That's where I started going to. And I was a big Fireball Roberts for all the Pontiac guys. And I got the new Marvin Ponch good too. We ran into him every year down there. But Fireball was my hero, and I never got to meet him. He got killed before that. But Smokey Unick was a friend of mine too.
Well, he knew how to do some things, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he was good. And he had an auction, and I wanted to buy his 8-lug Pontiac wheels that he had that were popular back in the 60s. He says $2,000. I says for the whole pallet. Nope, each. He said each set. And I said no, I won't pay that. You know. So they finally had an auction there, and I got over there late because we were at the track. And I said, "What happened to the aluminum wheels?" She said, "They sold." I said, "What'd they bring?" She says, $2,000. I said, "For a set?" Nope, for the whole pallet. There had to be 40 wheels on there, you know. And so I didn't get those. I said, "There's a workbench outside there. What are you doing with that?" She says, "Why do you ask?" Well, I said, "I used to stop and visit with Smokey all the time about the old days and stuff. I'd like to have something. I'll buy that for remembrance." She says, "Take it." So we had our truck down there. So the guys came and loaded up. It's just a
Nice.
workbench. And when they showed his life on TV, they showed that workbench and sitting there doing a car. My guys all joke about that bench. It's just a angle iron plywood bench, you know, nothing fancy, but Smokey was quite a guy. Yeah.
Where do you have that bench now?
Jim Bradley's race shop in the back, yeah. Yeah. We gotta
That
set up
is
in a race
cool.
shop sometime.
I think so too. I
You
wish that I
actually
was
live-
closer.
Where do you actually live?
I live in Trempealeau, Wisconsin.
Where is that?
It's on the Mississippi. It is about 25 minutes north of La Crosse.
Oh, okay, you're up there.
Yep.
Oh, Jay Souter lives in La Crosse.
Yep. Actually, he lives, I believe, in West Salem.
Salem, that's right. That's
Yep.
right.
Because Toby works out of Chris Johnson's shop, which is on Pleasant Valley Road, and that's the same road that Jay lives on
Oh,
too.
yeah?
Yeah. Of course, I don't know if I should be saying that on here. Maybe I'll have to edit that part out.
Yeah.
He may not want everyone to know where he lives. I don't know.
I'm
Well, I
glad
know
to
where
hear you on Todd and Eddie too. They're both good friends of ours.
Oh,
And Brian Schmidt too. I just sold Brian a car for his daughter. And I
did
sold
you?
Todd his car too. So
Geez, Jerry, you're still working? You didn't even retire?
down to 10 hours a day now though. I go off on Saturdays. Saturday morning I get up and I want to go to church because I think it's Sunday.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
No, no.
Stay in good graces every day.
We're on the same location for 84 years, and I've been there since I was 10 years old. So
Wow.
my dad died when he was 69. He wasn't that old. So my mother lived till 97. She just died a couple of years ago. So, but we had a good family life, you know. My dad loved our racing. He never said nothing bad about it, you know. He left us do it, take off and do it. You know.
Did your dad race too?
No, he just owned that Kaiser that time in Milwaukee. My mother wouldn't let him race because he had kids to raise, you know.
Okay.
That was a dangerous sport back in those days, a lot more than it is now, you know. He didn't have the safety equipment and all that stuff. So, yeah.
That's for sure. Well, Jerry, I really appreciate you taking some time to share
I
some
enjoyed talking to you. Yep.
yeah, you have some great stories.
Oh, yeah, there's more, but that's enough for the time being.
I think you should consider writing the book, and you don't have to actually write it. You can get somebody
I
to
know this
kind of
guy called me.
ghostwrite it.
He's from Green Bay, and he's done some Alan Kowicki ones. Father Gruba. Father Gruba is a good friend of ours too. My wife's real close with him. He says something happens to me, she should marry him.
Oh my
I'll
goodness.
tell you a story about Dick Trickle. So Dick Trickle and Robbie Reiser and I think Felix Sabatos are laying on a tire pile at Daytona, and the trophy queen, well, Father Gruber was with us too. A trophy queen walks by, and Trickle says to Dick, or says to Father Gruber, "You ever think of maybe just once?" Don't
Oh
put
my
that on
goodness.
TV or radio, rather.
Oh, Father would get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh my goodness, that's funny. I think between you and Elaine, you guys pretty much know everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Well, Jerry, again, thank you so much.
I look forward to meeting you somewhere along the
Well,
line.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will make sure the next time I'm over at Slinger or on that
Yeah,
side of the
we're done at
state.
Slinger now. We got crashed real bad on Sunday nights, so we're
Yeah.
in the front stub.
Do you help Brad in the shop at all yet?
Not much anymore. I used to do more, but I just help him out with other stuff, you know. He worked for me for the last 20 years. And now he went on his own there selling the golf carts and stuff because he wants me to quit. And I got the place for sale right now. So when that sells, I'll go to work for him. He said it'll be the first time in my life I got to learn how to take orders. So,
You mean you don't do that with Elaine already?
huh?
You don't take orders from Elaine?
I also have the last word. Yes, dear.
Oh,
Mhm.
oh, Jerry, you are phenomenal. You are phenomenal.
So,
I
Well,
will echo
a poor
Jacqueline's.
white boy trying to get ahead.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this as well too, because I really enjoy hearing about the history of NASCAR and to talk to somebody that's actually lived through it and been part of it and has a fantastic sense of humor is really made my night.
Yeah, appreciate
yeah.
that. I even knew old Bill France. Because Cliff Tuffy, who started Elkhart Lake, was a customer of ours also. He was an Everett guy and all that. He said, "Jerry, you going to Daytona?" And I said, "Yep." He says, "Say hi to Big Bill for me." So I looked up Big Bill. I said, "Cliff Tuffy says hi." He says, "Cliff Tuffy, he's a good old boy. Tell him I said hi back," you know, and stuff like that. That was kind of interesting, you know.
Wow. Dang, you do know everybody.
Oh,
Yeah,
you know what? I did get a ride in the police car. I really did. Um, who, who was the ball-headed guy that ran NASCAR in the garage? Dick Beatty.
yeah, Dick Beatty. Yeah,
He says, "Hey, you want to go for a ride around the track?" He had the van. He was going to check out the track. He stopped in turn one. He said, "I'll get out and try to walk up it." Well, you know, it's pretty steep. But I was a lot younger then too. And then a pace car driver, which was not Harold Kinder, but it was that white-haired guy. I can't remember. He says, "You want to be in the pace car for the race?" It was a sportsman race, so I had to sit in back of the Grand Prix, of course. And you know, the pressure, you had to have your seatbelt on because you were just. But it was really fun. I didn't take any pictures done at all. But I turned around and I could see all those cars coming at me. We just did the one lap, and then the other pace car kept going for the next one. But it was fun. People can't
Wow.
that I could do stuff like that, but you can't be afraid of it. You know, somebody
You
asked.
two really need to do the book. Your pictures, Elaine, and Jerry's stories. I just think it would be a phenomenal bestseller.
Yeah, yeah, it might be. We're getting pretty. Yeah, we fall asleep early at night now.
I got a hard enough time getting ready for this show with all my scribbling and stuff. So.
Well, save your
It's
scribblings.
hard remembering stuff from 40, 50 years ago, and that's what we're talking about already here.
That's the kind of stuff for the book. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I can already see it on my coffee table with Elaine's photographs. Yeah.
We ran New Smyrna years ago, 10 nights in a row. That's when we got to know Tony Stewart. Our spotter spotted for Tony Stewart also. And then Tony drove our truck. I don't know if I told you that. We gave him his first ride in NASCAR. Chevrolet paid us $10,000 to put Tony in our truck at IRP in 1996. And that's when he's under contract to Chevy then. And he said, a year from now, I'll be a millionaire. And he was,
Wow.
And he still knows us when we go. And then we had Robbie Reiser was the crew chief for him when he drove our truck. And the next race we went to, he says, where's the chief? So what are you talking about? The chief, the crew chief, where's he? He's looking for Robbie.
That's
He's
wild.
a good guy. Then he came up here and he did a exhibition race against Bradley in legend cars, and they took turn sharing the lead, and he let Tony won at the end of it. And he wrote on Bradley's helmet, you wish you were Tony Stewart. He's a neat guy, Tony. I really like
Oh,
Tony.
yeah. What do you think of him going to drag racing now?
Well, he's doing good at it, I'll say that. And he's got a good wife there, too. And he got fed up with NASCAR is what he did, too. So he just wanted to show him that there's something else, besides that. But his team isn't doing too good either this year.
No, it sounds like they're going to be selling some charters.
Yep, that's big money, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it certainly is not the era that was the most fun era, and you were blessed to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah. We went to Daytona that first year with a used motor, and we had to buy a motor for the 500 when we made it from prototype for 10 grand, which we did. And it was one of Rusty Wallace's old motors that we bought for 10 grand, but we made the race so we could do it. So we went from race to race, and we just raised different money, different ways, and doing different things.
I can tell you're a salesman. You know how to get things done and put things together.
Yeah, and after the almighty dollar all the time in racing, and you got to keep at it. It's the way it is,
You obviously taught your kids how to do that too.
We had all volunteers in our pit crew all the time too, but we paid all their expenses. We'd fly them to the races and give them vehicles to drive, and we did everything, like that. And paid all the motel rooms, and that got expensive all the time. But we didn't stay in the best of places, but
Nights in.
yeah.
No cockroaches, so it was good, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's what they check for all the time. And they couldn't always figure out why Chizzy was our spotter. He was one of my best friends. He spotted for a bunch of NASCAR guys after a while. Still lives in Florida, Daytona. And how come you and Chizzy all stay at the fancier places? At Souter, he said, oh, we shared a room with him and Penny, his wife, that time. He says, how many car owners and drivers sleep in the same motel room? But we did that time with him. His wife was wonderful too, Penny. He suffered so much. Yeah. So.
Dang. Well, I appreciate you, Jerry, so much.
Look forward to meeting you. So.
Yeah, we will sometime soon.
Yep. We'll have a drink. You drink it all?
I do.
Okay, good.
I drink for two. I drink for two because Toby doesn't drink. He quit drinking almost 40 years ago.
He's so serious. When you see him at a racetrack, I never even go up and talk to him because he's so serious.
Oh, you should see him holding a grandkid. He's a big marshmallow.
Is he then? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yep. How many grandkids you got?
I got to count 4, 5, 6, 7.
7. So we got 9.
7.
You know how many Souter had?
Well, if you
50.
had, yeah, I was
When
going
he
to say,
died-
When he
before
died, he had
died,
50 grandchildren.
wow,
Yeah, now there's more.
darn. Christmas can be very expensive for Catholic families.
Yeah. When we went up by him the first time after he did deal with him driving, went to his house and he had a table there, had to be 20 feet long. The chairs all around it, and when he won the Milwaukee race, he had enough money to buy the table and the chairs for around it for the family. I don't know what they ate on before, but it was a monster table. And imagine a
Whoa.
grocery bill.
No,
Oh,
I
no.
can't.
Nowadays, you couldn't possibly do that. No.
There's no way. No way. Again, I think you guys got to live in probably
Best
the
of time.
best. Yeah.
Those were the best years back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, all right, Jerry. You and Elaine,
Thanks
thank
for
you
doing
so
this.
much.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Okay.